Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. So in today's video, what we are going to basically discuss is that when should you be moving to Australia if you are planning for the ADC exams, all right? Because there are different pathways available to candidates when someone has made up a decision that they want to work as a dentist in Australia, they'll have to go through the ADC exams, right? So, when to make the move to Australia if you're planning for ADC, whether it's before you start the ADC journey or whether it's after you clear the ADC journey. So, there are different pathways, different options, different pros and cons available for each pathway that you can take in order for you to make the move to Australia if you're planning for ADC. All right. Now, please remember every path has its pros and cons. So make sure that you analyze and make the move. This video is not a recommendation. It's basically creating an awareness what you should already be knowing before you select a certain pathway for you to make the move to Australia if you're planning for ADC. All right. So I'm going to discuss that in this video. Make sure you watch a lot of useful tips, discussion of advantage, disadvantage regarding different pathways available. That's going to give you a lot of information so that you can make a planned decision because it's always good to know what you're going for. Because if you know something ahead of time, it becomes a reason. But once if you know something that has happened or that has occurred, it becomes an excuse. All right. So always keep yourself well aware and make sure that you understand whatever you are opting for, whatever path you are taking for you to come to Australia before ADC, after ADC. And please make sure that you watch this video in regards to the other videos that we have in the course portal on our YouTube channel, because everything adds up to the information that you should be knowing. All right. So let's get started. So, when to move to Australia if you're planning for ADC? The answer to this question depends on three main factors that holds true for majority of ADC candidates. Now, we have classified the ADC candidates who are going to sit for the ADC exams in three broad categories. All right. Now, the first category, like I said, we have divided the candidates into three main factors or three categories that holds true for majority of the pool of ADC candidates, right? So the first type or the first factor is that are you getting married and will move to Australia to join your husband or your wife? Now, this is one pool of candidates, and this statement will hold true for that particular pool of candidates who are getting married and their spouse are is already in Australia, right? So you will move to Australia on a spouse visa, partner visa. You will come here, you'll prepare for ADC, and you will work if required. Um, you'll either work as a dental assistant or maybe certain other jobs, and you will be preparing for ADC at the same time. And once you clear ADC, you'll be able to practice as a dentist in Australia. So you already have a visa to stay long term, so you don't need to worry about the hassle of coming to Australia, right? And frankly, you don't have any other option because if your partner is going to be in Australia and you're going to move to join your partner, you'll be in Australia when you're preparing for the ADC exam, right? So to keep yourself financially stable, you might be working certain jobs, which is like a dental assistant or maybe other jobs, whatever you're comfortable with. And at the same time, giving the ADC exams, preparing for it. And once you clear ADC, you start working as a dentist. So the path is pretty straightforward, right? Unless, of course, we do have certain candidates who plan to live separately and continue to work in their home countries. For example, someone who's getting married to an Australian resident, Australian PR holder, an Australian citizen, but back home in their country, they already have a good established practice. They're practicing dentists, they have clinics or work for someone, so they're already established there. And they don't want to come to Australia and just sit because you can't practice as a dentist. So what they do is they plan to live separately and continue to work in their home country. And once they clear the ADC, they make the move to join their partner in Australia. So there are different circumstances that would hold true, and everyone is different. So you have to analyze which one would you like to go for, because you also need to remember that if you do get married to someone who is in Australia or holds an Australian citizen PR holder, and you're going to join him on a spouse or a partner visa. But please remember, you won't be able to work as a dentist, right? So sometimes it gets a bit hard for someone who's already an established practitioner back home in their country, whichever country they're practicing in. So it becomes a bit hard for them to come to just Australia and not work as a dentist, work as a DA, or work as maybe certain other jobs. So, of course, this decision would depend on your discussion with your partner on how you would like to take things, whether you would like to join straight away or you would like to join them after you have cleared ADC. So it will all depend on the discussion that you have with them. All right. The second pool of candidates, which we see quite often, is, are you someone who just wants to leave their home country and just wants to come here in whatever way? So this is someone who just wants to leave their home country, come to Australia in whatsoever option they have. The most common option is the student visa, right? We commonly see dentists from subcontinent India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, Nepal, Maldives, Bhutan. So countries, these candidates from these countries who are already dentists in these countries, they just want to leave their home country and come to Australia, all right, and continue their journey as a dentist in Australia itself. So these candidates, usually they are not happy with the conditions of their country, the home country, and they would like to leave it. Their earnings are low, so low earnings, even if they are working as a dentist, they're not really happy. Their earnings are low, and this pathway, this pool of candidates, we see commonly in young graduates when they opt for this pathway. They are like 1 to 4 years after their graduation, right? So what happens is that these candidates, what they will do is they will acquire a student visa for different universities of Australia. They'll opt in for certain courses like a Master in Public Health or Master in Health Administration, etc. And they will come here, and along with their university course and studies, they will also work to make money and prepare for ADC at the same time, right? So basically, they are coming to Australia on a student visa, all right? Once they are in Australia, they will be um, going through their university courses, of course, because that's the reason why they are here. And because most of the courses are just 1 to 2 days a week, so they will have the opportunity to, work as well, and at the same time prepare for ADC as well, because that's the ultimate goal, right? The advantage of this pathway is that you're already in Australia, and this can lead to PR later depending on your university course and if you fulfill the immigration requirements. So after student visa, you get a further 2 year visa, and then if possible, it can be converted to PR depending upon state regulations and requirements, right? You will also have the opportunity to make money because most of these pool of candidates, when they are in Australia, they will work as a dental assistant or they will do certain other odd jobs. But because you also need to remember, on a student visa, you have a limit on working hours. So don't expect that you will make a lot of money, especially as long as you're on a student visa, right? Because you have some work restriction. You can't work 6, 7 days a week. You probably can work maybe 3 days a week, because there are certain rules and regulations that are going to be implemented on you when you're on a student visa, right? So you need to take this into account as well. So possibly you might be earning somewhere between 2000 to 2500 Australian dollar a month. But also please remember that the expense, the living expense, rent, and all these things. So you're not really saving much with this pathway. Okay. It's not that once you start working as a DA or once you start doing certain other jobs, you'll be earning a shitload of cash. No, that's not true. Maximum that you can earn would be around 2000 to 2500 Australian dollar. And that's what I'm talking about a month. So some candidates they find this quite rewarding because they're not making that much money in their home country. So for them, this is good enough, and they can opt for this pathway and come here, work as a DA, or they can work as certain other jobs as well. Uh, Go through their university courses, and then also prepare for ADC at the same time. So this pathway, you can come here and then prepare for the ADC. Once you are done with ADC, you can start working as a dentist. All right. So this is one way that we do see candidates coming. All right. Now, the problem is that it's as simple as it seems. It's not really very easy because you have to see at certain other factors like how to balance your university studies, your work, and most importantly, preparing for ADC because that's your ultimate main aim, right? Preparing for ADC and passing the ADC exam so you can work as a dentist in Australia, right? Secondly, adding to the stress and happiness, it's not really easy gauging all these things together, all right? And the last and the most important thing, you still have to clear ADC to work as a dentist, right? Otherwise, you will be keep working as a dental assistant or maybe other jobs as long as you're on a student visa. You can also progress to career pathway in the university course you are doing. All right. Once you finish that university course you are doing, you can progress to certain career pathway in that particular course because most of the courses that you're going to do is non-clinical dentistry courses. It's health courses, right? Like I mentioned, master in public health or master in health administration and so on. So you can look for jobs for what you have already studied because student visa, if applicable, might turn into PR later, allowing you to stay in Australia indefinitely and work as much as you want. Salary will get better, but not as much as if you will make working as a dentist. Probably one third to one half, possibly, depending upon what you're doing. So, what this means is that let's say you are here on a student visa and you complete the course at your university, right? You complete that degree, and now you have further time to stay in Australia. And let's say you're not thinking of ADC, you say, okay, no, I don't want to work as a dentist. Let me just do something else. So you do have options then as well because you can join a career pathway in regards to what you have studied at the university, right? So look for jobs in those fields. Maybe you'll get it. Not really easy because there is a huge saturation. Every second, third candidate that comes from subcontinent is getting a student visa and studying the same course. So not really easy, but yes, not impossible. It is possible. Candidates have done that. So you forget about dentistry, you forget about working as a dentist in Australia, just continue with your journey for what you studied, look for jobs there in regards to that, which ultimately after student visa, you'll get a different visa and that will lead to a PR because you have stayed in Australia for such a long time. But also please remember that of course this all is rewarding, but not as rewarding as working as a dentist. Like I said, even if you get the best of the jobs in for the course or the degree that you have studied, you will be earning one third or one half of that what a dentist can easily earn. So candidates have taken this path as well. So it's totally up to you because not everyone is in love with clinical dentistry. Not everyone wants to practice as a dentist, right? So this is also one of the pathways that can be taken. All right. Now, the third pathway, are you currently working as a dentist in your country? Now, this is a separate pool of candidates. What they do is that they are currently working in their home country. Either they are general dentist or specialist. They have years of experience. They're an established dentist. They work at an established practice or they own their own clinics. They have good earnings. Okay. Now, this pool of candidates who are making their move to Australia and planning for ADC, they usually make the move for better earning potential. Of course, you can earn a lot in Australia as a dentist, right? For a better future, most of these candidates also want to change their passport because their passport is not really good for the country that they belong to. And of course, some candidates will also be thinking for their children's future, right? Which is much more brighter in Australia compared to where they are at this present time when they're planning for ADC. Now, it's these candidates, they will prepare for ADC exams while still working, and once clear, will make the move to Australia. Like once they clear the ADC, they will then plan their move to Australia. It's pretty straightforward. After that, I have another video discussing in detail, but basically you will have a sponsored visa, you have a state sponsored visa, you have employer sponsored visa. So there are many options for those candidates who are not in Australia, have cleared the exam, they can come to Australia quite easily. The good thing about this is that this pool of candidates is that they're working in their field and they are confident to practice, right? Less stress of clinical dentistry transition, because these candidates, or these pool of candidates, they're already working as clinical dentists, right? So when they finish the ADC, for them to get into that transition phase from their country to practice in Australia is not really hard, because most things they have already done, right? They were doing in back their home country. They just need to adapt to the protocols and the system, which doesn't take much time. Probably in a month, you will be good to go. All right. And it's a smooth journey because you're working, you attempted ADC exams, you cleared ADC exams, and then you're making a move to Australia, which, like I said, is not really hard. There are many visas available for you to come to Australia. So that's something that was also my pathway, because I was working back first in Pakistan, then in UAE, and then I made my move to Australia. Because I was working so much in UAE, I have done everything there. So it was pretty much easy for me to blend in with the practice of dentistry in Australia. It was not really hard, hardly took me a week. And it's really easy because I remember my first day at work. Um, I had this upper right first and second molar root canal, and then a surgical extraction for lower left wisdom tooth. And the employer at that time, because I was working under someone at that time, so he was a bit hesitant. He said that are you going to do, because you most candidates who finish ADC, they are not really comfortable doing such procedures. I said, what do you mean? This was my bread and butter back in UAE when I was working. So it's not really hard. This is something that we used to do on daily basis. And that was 6,000 that we made in like what, 2, 3 hours. So 6,000 Australian dollars. So I remember that figure quite well because that was my first day at work in Australia. It's been a few years now, but yeah. So it's an easy transition for this pool of candidates who are working, let's say in India or Pakistan, Gulf countries, and when they finish ADC journey, clear ADC exams, and then they come to Australia, the clinical dentistry transition that they undergo is a bit easier compared to someone who is out of clinical dentistry for years. Because at the end of the day, once you clear ADC, it's for you to practice as a dentist in Australia, right? Otherwise, what's the point? So that's the main thing. Clinical dentistry is main thing. That's what you have to do, right? Even me right now, even teaching candidates, because I run courses for ADC, written practical exam very successfully, but I still work. I make sure I work at least 3 days or 4 days a week because that's just my love for clinical dentistry. But yeah, so this is another separate pool of candidates, like I said. There's no harm in this pathway. It's perfectly okay. Like I said, this was my pathway as well. But it all you have to see what your situation is. Are you currently happy in the home country where you're practicing? Are you earning enough? Because some of these candidates might eventually think that let me just wrap this all up and move on a student visa to Australia, which brings back us to the second pathway, like I discussed. So it all depends on how and what your circumstances are. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, that these video is to create awareness. It's not a recommendation that you definitely should follow this path or this path. No, it's awareness that you need to know what are different paths and the pros and cons. Okay. Now, the other pathway, which is it's a bit rare, is your parents are Australian citizens, PR holder, and you just went to your home country to study dentistry. Now, this is also certain candidates that we do have, that their parents are already in Australia, but because dentistry and medical can be expensive here, the universities, so they send their kids back home to study, and then Once they finish their study, they join their parents back here. So, of course, even if you have done dentistry outside Australia, you will have to sit the ADC exams, right? So they join their parents, live in their house, and prepare for ADC. So not a big hassle for them since they were born and raised in Australia. So they just need to clear ADC and will be able to practice as a dentist in Australia. Now, the further 2 points that I've added is important because we do get a lot of queries in regard to this. Like coming to Australia to work as a DA. Now, please remember, you can't come to Australia to work as a dental assistant. No visa is available for that. No employer is going to sponsor you for that. It's impossible. All right. You can only work as a DA when you are already in Australia. So once you are already in Australia, let's say student visa, spouse visa, you can work as a dental assistant. But let's say you're sitting in a different country, India, Pakistan, or any country, and you want to come to Australia to work as a DA, that's not possible. Okay. So if you're already in Australia, yes, you can work as a dental assistant because you already have a visa to be in Australia, right? A student visa, spouse visa, or whatever visa you have to stay in Australia legally, you can work as a DA, but you can't acquire a visa to move to Australia to work as a dental assistant. The last thing, coming to Australia to work as an oral therapist or oral hygienist, again, no. You can't take ADC exams for these because ADC has separate exams for hygienist, therapist, and prosthetics and all that. You can't take these exams if you're a dentist. So if you're a dentist back home in your country, you can only take the ADC general dentistry examination. You can't take examinations for oral therapist, hygienist, or prosthetics and all that. You can't move to Australia based on these. No, you can't move to Australia based on that you're a dentist, but you say that once I'm in Australia, I'll work as a therapist or hygienist. No, you can't do that. Okay. You can only move to Australia with ADC after you clear ADC, getting registered as a dentist. Okay. But let's say someone is already here in Australia and they attempted the ADC exams, they were not successful, they're tired of it, and they want to change their career pathway. Then what they do is they join courses because there are certain courses that certain universities run, which makes you an oral therapist or oral hygienist. So they go through these courses and and they become an oral therapist or oral hygienist, and then they work as an oral therapist or oral hygienist. So that is one way that you can do this, right? But you can't just come from overseas to Australia to work as an oral therapist or hygienist. And as far as my knowledge, you can't even enroll in these courses if you're overseas. Let's say a university, let's say University of Melbourne, or let's assume University of Melbourne providing courses to students to prepare them to become oral therapists or hygienists. That is just for local students who are in Australia. If you're overseas, a dentist, you can't even enroll in these courses. Okay. So your only option is ADC, clearing ADC, coming to Australia as a dentist. Okay. Or if you're already in Australia on certain visa, clearing ADC and working as a dentist in Australia. Okay. So, yeah, make sure that you watch this video, analyze the pathways that are available to you, ask other people who have taken certain pathway, ask your friends, relatives. In certain cases, you might need help from migration agencies in regards to visas available, especially if you're going with the student visa pathway. Also, make sure to ask them after my student visa gets done, what will happen? Will I get an extension? Can I stay in Australia legally? If there is an extra visa that will be provided to me, and if that visa leads to PR or something like that, make sure that you have all these questions ready when you're coming through student visa, because that's important, right? Because you should be making you should be know you should be aware that what's going to happen once your university course ends, and will you be able to stay in Australia legally and all that. So make sure that you're well aware before take an informed decision for yourself, because it's better to be aware of things beforehand rather than panicking once something or situation arises. All right, thank you so much.